Always fun looking at Gulfstream Park through the years as we settle in for the final Friday card in the month of February. Hard to believe, February 23rd, off and running. Acacia Courtney, Jason Blewett, good to have you with us, everybody, live from our Paddock Set studios on another Beat the Expert Friday, and we begin another marathon, but a good weekend here at Gulfstream.
We do 13 races both Saturday and Sunday. We do have some stakes action on both days, in fact, so don't forget to join us for that. Should be a really fun weekend. But as Jason mentioned today, first things first, Ron Nicoletti is up for Beat the Expert. And as I always say, better him than me, because we always do have a little bit of that Beat the Expert curse, but it's a lot of fun. Go to our Facebook page. 11 races on tap today. Ron is primed and ready. And if you do pick more winners than him, which hasn't been that difficult for any of us, you will get the chance to win one of those great polo shirts.
There he is, the man, the legend, the mayor of Gulfstream Park, and Tony Bennett's doppelganger. Now, Ronnie up and Beat the Expert, free to play over at GulfstreamPark.com. However, we also want you to hit the windows, whether on track at Gulfstream or on expressbet.com, and do keep in mind we've got some mega money guarantees fitting for another Super Saturday type afternoon during the championship meet here at GP. So Saturday, February 24th, do note we've got three, again, mega money guarantees, beginning with that $2 million minimum in the Rainbow Six.
And that's only if it's not hit today. It made it through yesterday with one single, a big price horse, the number 7 in the final race of the day. But we do have a carryover. It's already 1.35 million today. If it's not hit today, we will have that guarantee tomorrow. Again, 13 races, so we definitely want to play that. We'll have lots of good betting options for you on Saturday.
That includes the Grade 3 Hal's Hope that goes as the 12th. Good to pay homage to one of the real blue-collar unsung heroes of Florida racing in years past. He was a real overachiever, upset the Holy Bull, paid about $80 in there or so back in 2000, and would go on to win the Florida Derby for the late Barry Rose. Now, as we move on to what's on tap today, we kick things off. Speaking of carryovers, our first big number carryover on the card, about 3,500 and change in the opening leg of the Super High Five in race number 1, which features a couple of Jorge Navarro, one current, one former Navarro runner squaring off, and they are hands down the big two. They are, again, the star attractions in that opening leg of Friday's early pick 5. And as we build up steam, how about 7 figures plus, Acacia, in that Friday Rainbow?
As I alluded to earlier, 1.35 million. It starts in the 6th race today with that Rainbow 6. Try to take a stab at that a little bit later on, and then we wrap things up with the 50-cent late pick 5. Some nice races a little bit later on today for sure. Good scene set for this weekend, and definitely going through race by race. There's some tricky races to get through on today's afternoon, but it looks like you do have some good betting opportunities for sure.
You definitely do. Some chunky, bulky size fields, and without further ado, we'll dive right into this fast and firm Friday, February 23rd here on Gulfstream today. We can't talk about race 1 without showing your early pick 5. I'm just wondering how much are we spending?
All right, $27 today. I did have a single, and I think that the speeds do look strongest. You mentioned the Jorge Navarro runners, and Indian Chaser, I think, just might be the best. I almost actually even singled her to start things off. I will use AJ Zamix, though, who maybe is not quite as strong as she was in earlier this year, but the barn's been going very well. I just said cheers in race number 2, the number 2 Sip My Chardonnay, and I'll be honest, I really tried very hard to pick against her, and just with that drop, maybe it is a bit of a red flag, but honestly, I've just personally thought for a while that she needed the drop, so she gets the drop in class and back to the dirt. I just think that she meets the right field, plain and simple.
Yep.
Going with 3 horses in race number 3, Jason and I talking about this race, it is very tough. Could be a strong double for Ralph Nix, who has downrange, an impressive maiden winner first time out. Race number 4 going with 3 horses as well. Todd Pletcher has a strong hand in there with 2 runners, could potentially run 1-2. Race number 5, we're going to see the return of Impressive Edge for Dale Romans, and I've been waiting for him to get back to sprinting. I always thought that that was a little bit more of what he wanted to do, a little bit more of the pedigree. So we'll see what we get from him off of the layout, but you do have some stronger, perhaps more seasoned, and perhaps not as fancy runners in the field as well. But so $27 for me.
A nice little cap cash out to this early pick 5. I mean, the 5th race today goes as the Friday co-feature, a high-level 52K optional claimer. And not only do you have Impressive Edge coming back, you've got Barkley Tag with another returning horse with a ton of back class in Realm. And speaking of Ralph Nix, who has sipped my Chardonnay, he's got a major player in the 3rd. He also has a Bounding Legacy, who almost reminds me of a Harry He type Florida bred. Just very honest, very consistent, and a horse that's got good early speed. So let's begin in talking about the current and the former Jorge Navarro trained mares in this upcoming Friday opener. And we do begin with the current Navarro runner as he looks to build upon 29 meet victories. He's 2nd in the standings behind Todd Pletcher, and he has Indian Chaser off a tough but game loss last time out.
It was. It will show that race. And I think the key with Indian Chaser is that she had to be used very hard last time out to get out early. And there she is, the number 7, Misael Jaramillo, up. Started to just kind of pull away from the rest of the field as we pick it up at the quarter pole. Motions First is the number 1 in the blue blinkers inside. That horse was really game to come up the rail and end up dueling. And these two just kind of put on a show coming down to the wire. It looked like Indian Chaser was going to be able to hold on. She has the 5-pound apprentice, Abby Medina, in the saddle today. Navarro's used this apprentice quite a bit, and I think that speed's going to be the key again. Hopefully she gets a little bit easier out of the break as she just kind of looked to get a little bit leg weary, and that's how Motions First ended up getting the best of her last time. But AJ Zamex has been solid, and she does have some speed too, so will be interesting to see how these two work it out.
It doesn't take a whole lot of creative thinking to see both of them potentially hooking up a few strides from the gate. And AJ Zamex, who does have Edgar Zayas and has got a rebound off 2 losses at sub 2-1, 9-5 and 6-5 for her current trainer, Jose Velez. I do think she drew a little bit better, and she's in the driver's seat this afternoon with Edgar. But it's a case, even if they do hook up, they are so far superior as far as their consistency and recent form. It's just really tough to go against, again, that former and current Jorge Navarro trained horse in race number 1. As we move on to race number 2, we stay on the main track, but we do cut back a bit to 6.5 furlongs with these older filly mare, 2 lifetime 12-5 claimers. I had the same tactic as you. You move on to Sip My Chardonnay, and she's got to post towards the inside as the 2 horse, and I think your plan of attack is, okay, let me find somebody else to beat her because she's going to be favored on a sizable drop. And as I worked my way through, I just wasn't enamored with the good bulk of the field. In fact, 4 of the 7 who are exiting out of the 8th race here on February 7th, and not by default, but Sip My Chardonnay may just have that timing on her side as she drops down.
Yeah, she just seems to meet the right field today, and she's been a bit of a tough filly as she started out in Special Weight Company. She actually went off the favorite in her debut race, and she's just kind of underperformed since, and they tried the turf. Her only win actually did come on the wet track, so she gets an aggressive drop in class today. The Dam's pedigree, she was pretty good, multiple graded stakes place, but she was a dirt sprinter, so maybe she's getting back to what she wants to do, and more than anything, I think the drop is going to be key for her. I tried to spice it up using the 3 Adocinda, who does take the blinkers off today. Her best races have been where she can dictate the pace, and potentially Beautiful Alley, though she's turning back in distance, has a little bit of speed, but maybe Adocinda getting comfortable on the front end as Sip My Chardonnay is one that likes to come from off the pace.
Definitely a good point with Adocinda, who's got the right speed rider on her back, and Edgar Zayas, who has got a shot to win both halves of the early double today. And speaking of doubles, that scenario and that bet certainly applies to the presence of trainer Ralph Nix in races 2 and 3 as we move on to Friday's 3rd, a 3-year-old $35,000 to $25,000 6.5 furlong dirt race and a claimer featuring a field of 7, and in which Ralph Nix has the first out winning for our friends over at West Point Thoroughbreds, the number 6 Downrange, who going back and we'll watch his win again on January 15th, he never had a breather. He really ran well in a tough spot on the turn.
Well, that's what I wanted to highlight here as we show. He had to deal with the rail post position, and as we pick it up at the quarter pole, basically what happened is that he broke a little bit slow inside. He didn't get off to the best best start. He was stuck down on the inside, basically 4 across the track, sending early. And now, as it looks like he has a little bit of a breather, if we could just freeze it right here, he's got these horses that have been his biggest issue starting to fade. But down on the inside, he has the number 2, Agujero, who all of a sudden becomes the biggest threat for him. So as we let it go down to the wire, he had to overcome traffic and dueling early. And now as he's having to be used a lot early on, he's got other horses that he has to fend off in the stretch. So I thought a very professional debut from him with nothing going his way, having to deal with the inside post. He's a really good looking horse, and he doesn't have much pedigree to work with, and I think that's probably the main reason he did debut for the tag. He comes back at a comparable level, and he's been working very well.
And it's not a one-and-done scenario with Ralph Nix when he does win first time out. He's 8 for 40, in fact, with second-time starters who are coming in off those respective maiden wins for 20%. A horse that's definitely got a chance. As well as he ran in the context of that race, I don't love the field and the fact that horses are 0 for 5 as a whole, dropping out. And that led me to, again, speaking of rematches, we've got a few horses dropping out of the 8th race on February 2nd, and no real excuse that afternoon at 9 to 5 or even 8 to 5 for the 7 Hardway winner. I'm hoping, though, that outside post will work to his benefit today, because he just was in that unenviable spot of having to chase the 9 to 5 second choice in Tenacity Zip, who wired the field. He's the one I want out of that race, and clearly you agree too.
Yeah, he's coming out. I think he had a tough time last time out, and he's making that comparable move. He's staying at this 35,000 level. With the outside speed, the only question with him is if Can't Say No takes to the grass and runs the way he's been working and shows the speed that he did 2 back, that could make things interesting for Hardway winner. Excuse me, not takes to the grass, but does do that drop in class now, first time for Peter Walder. Fortune Cookie is really the interesting one, because this is a horse that's taken money, comes out for a really good barn, drops in class, and just hasn't been able to get it done.
He's lacked that oomph at crunch time in his last couple of starts at short prices. This might be a very, very significant drop in class. Not that he faced any grade 1 horses, but again, he is the class dropper if you do want that, and that's what I thought his biggest appeal might just be from that inside post for Rosario and Bill Mott in race number 3. As we get on to our opening turf race this Friday afternoon, a 4th race that sees us go 7.5 furlongs on the firm turf course, field of 5. Couple of key defections out of this one, and the 1 Mohican and the New York bred, the number 5 Runaway Posse, and that leaves trainer Todd Pletcher, who's been number 1 from day number 1 in the standings with 44 wins at the meet. That leaves him with a very strong hand of a couple of aces with the 4 Candy Asset and the 7 Bold Daddy. And I thought Candy Asset got a pretty good ride last time out, saving ground beneath Tyler Gaffalione.
He did, but he really didn't have an easy start to things at all, and we'll show that race. And this was a race won by Solio, who came out of what proved to be one of the most productive races we've seen. So looking at the head-on of the break, and in the red cap, just gets totally jostled around at the start. So not an easy break. And then we go to the quarter pole and the number 2, if we can freeze right there, again in the red cap. Here's Candy Asset. He ends up trying to run with Solio, who's right here in the maker colors, the number 8, who went on a bit of a win streak there as we let it go now down to the wire. So Candy Asset having a poor break. He was kind of in the second group with several horses up front. He was trying late, though Solio just had a bit more momentum, and I think might be a slightly better horse than Candy Asset. That being said, I think that race, his only defeat to date, in fact, does serve as a good prep for him, and he, again, meets the right field, especially with the scratches.
A compact field of 5, and he's got that early speed where perhaps, maybe even by default with that early speed, because he's not a run-and-gun type high cruising speed horse, but he might just be naturally faster than anybody else in here. That should make him even tougher. Now, the 7 Bold Daddy couldn't have been any gamer, more determined, got a great ride from Javier Castellano with a very resourceful inside run to break his maiden. If you're wondering how Todd Pletcher does with horses, presumably who have broken their maidens in a maiden claiming race, who are returning in a starter allowance like the 1 Bold Daddy is running in against today, well, fear not. I mean, this is a big move. 123 starters in that sample and batting 32% in the win column. These are last out maiden winners, again, returning returning an allowance company, and I think Bull Daddy probably we haven't seen his best, you would think, as he runs third time out.
Well, he is second off the layoff too, and it's a very big sample size, but I think that Todd's horses, once they win, they do tend to pretty much stay in form, as we've seen in general. I did end up using the number 6, Little No Way, in second in there, trying to get just a little bit of a price in there. And the fact that John Velasquez does pick up the mount, he's actually on a couple of horses over the next few days for Carlo Vaccarezza. I think that that's pretty key. We saw it yesterday, his only mount on the day, again for Michael Matz. Johnny is being very selective with the horses that he's riding, and obviously it's showing in the way that they're running.
All right, as we move on to race number 5, very much the first half of this February 23rd card, a day at Gulfstream Park, dominated by action on the main track, and we do end that early 5 with a good one in this rich 2 other than allowance optional claimer for older runners at 7 furlongs on the main track. Very much it might boil down to a 3-horse affair between Realm, Impressive Edge, and then the recency horse in the 4 Bounding Legacy, but all 3 of these runners have very different resumes. And why don't we start with Impressive Edge, who a year ago was talked about as being an okay 3-year-old who had some promise and potential, and after winning that allowance race March 5th at Gulfstream Park, right around Fountain of Youth Day, he of course went on to run in the Florida Derby.
He did, and I think it's important to know that he won that allowance race by 8 lengths, and it was going 7 furlongs here. He stretched out to the Florida Derby. I thought he actually ran solidly, all things considered, in the swale. Again, a sprint distance, going the 7 furlongs. And I remember even around that time, the concern always was the stretch out in distance. He's run solidly. He ran 3rd on the wet track in the Grade 3 Peter Pan. He also ran 3rd in the Grade 3 Iowa Derby, both of those going a distance of ground. I just really love him back sprinting. He seems to be working well off the layoff, and Dale Romans with a 180-plus day layoff going from route to sprint. He's 19%, a third of the time in the money as well, and a positive ROI of 203. So looking at him and just what I remember from him last year, seeing him back at this 7 furlong distance seems to fit.
As Dale looks to pick up off that 17-win meet he's had thus far. His horses have run very well from, again, the get-go. Now, Barkley Tagg in the mix, and he's done a good job with the limited starters he's had. He's only had a little more than a dozen runners with 3 wins. The question becomes with the number 2 Realm, as he comes in off a near 4.5-month layoff, is he able to resurge, enjoy a little bit of a renaissance? Because a year ago at this time, he most likely would have been in the realm of perhaps, pun intended, 3 to 5 against this field.
Yeah, he certainly would have. He does take the blinkers off today. Do note that. And, I mean, he's got a ton of back class. He's Grade 1 placed for sure. Turning back in distance, they tried the turf the last time. It looked like his last few races were just so disappointing. They freshened him up. We'll see what we get from him off of the layoff. And we talked about this already, but the 4 Bounding Legacy is about as cool a horse as you possibly could. He is a little bit more successful on the racetrack than somebody like Harry He, but comes out of that race behind Delta Bluesman and Unbridled Outlaw. Just, he's so very game. Yeah,
he's like a richer, faster version of Harry He. He has speed, he can lay close, and he exits a couple of races with 8-Town, Delta Bluesman, and Unbridled Outlaw. These were legitimately good horses, and I love that he's got the speed in the fight to put himself right in the battle, and maybe just has timing on his side, having, again, recent solid form for trainer Ralph Nix, whereas Realm and Dale's layoff horse, Impressive Edge, are coming in off layoffs. No layoff for us, though. We're striking while we're hot, and that includes Friday's Rainbow Six after this quick timeout.
Pennsylvania, proud of our growing breeding and racing industry. Tens of thousands of jobs with a massive economic impact. Now, North America's most lucrative awards program will pay a 50% breeder award for PA-sired, PA-bred maidens who run first, second, or third, with 25% for non-PA-sired PA-breds. Plus, up to 40% in owner bonuses, 400-plus restricted races, and our program has paid out $30 million for the 6th straight year. Breeding and racing in Pennsylvania. It's a winner.
At ExpressBet, we celebrate the champions that make horse racing great. That's why we provide more ways to bet from more places than ever. We've built an entire family of brands to give players more of the rewards they deserve, give bettors the information they need to win, and provide a community for horse bettors. Because the best way to support the champions of horse racing is to champion horse racing. ExpressBet. We are racing.
5 down, 6 to go. A beautiful sun splash Friday, February 23rd here at Gulfstream Park. Keisha and Jason, again, delighted to have you coming along for the ride as the first of 11 goes at around 12:40 p.m. and a bit later, the opening leg of 1.3 million plus in the rainbow.
Not too bad a way to kick off your weekend. And as we always say, even if you don't have that one unique ticket, the 6 out of 6 payout can still be really, really good. And we'll show you my ticket. I'll take a stab at the sequence today. I was not able to find a single. I'm using 2 horses to start things off. I really like the one Coleman Rocky off of the trainer change to Jason Service. I'll back myself up with In His Image, but that horse to me looks like the one to beat. Using 3 horses in race number 7. Pretty fun, actually. Starter optional claiming race with a couple of recent maiden winners. And you do, of course, have a Todd Pletcher drop down in the mix. Race number 8 going with 2 horses in Starship Zodiac and So Fresh, who just kind of have, I think, the consistency on their side. 9th race, the key horses look to be going to the beach and Bakelite, in my opinion. 10th race, I'm going with 3 horses. Bit of a key rematch between Noble Ready and my sister's sledge, who ran very well last time. And then hopefully we make it to the cash out. It is a very tricky race to wrap things up today, going a mile on the turf. So I'll be using 3 horses for 43.20.
Sounds good as we talk about that first leg and we get right down to perhaps the first, indeed, the first of the 2 that you use from the rail, who I have on top. In fact, a Cole 1-5 exacted. It will be very much in terms of the battle for the favorites role in the 6th. It is a 2-horse race between Coleman Rocky and the speedy In His Image, yet another. And this is the 4th and final runner entered on today's card for trainer Ralph Nix, who could have himself a very live day here at Gulfstream because he's got a big chance with all 4. But getting back to Coleman Rocky from the rail, let's show you a stat with Jason Service. We know this is a barn that does very well claiming. How does Jason do first off the claim on the turf? Over the last 5 years, we're talking 20 for 47 at 43%, which is just unbelievable. And this is a good mix in this sample. It's not just Monmouth Park. It's New York, it's Florida, and it's a little Jersey as well. Big move here, even though, to be fair, Coleman Rocky has not really been a specialized 5/8 turf sprinter. That's the one concern I have.
It is a little bit tricky to take him as he has been a 2-turn turf horse lately. I saw the same stat, though. And last time out is just a race that you put a line through. He clipped heels after the start. He was beat by Carbon Data, who did come back to win again and just never really got into the race last time. And that was his first race running in for that non-winners of 2 level. Prior to that, he was running against significantly tougher competition. This horse even ran in the Florida Derby last year. So talk about a class relief. You put a line through that. So I'm looking at this as basically his first time in for this level and for this tag as well. Not to mention, first off the claim, he picks up Irad Ortiz Jr. I think it's all good things there. The speed, though, of In His Image will certainly be key. I like that he's second off the layoff, and I do think that that last race was perhaps one that he needed.
Yeah, almost 23-1 last time out, and boy, did he catch a tough, salty crew of turf sprinters. Race that's produced the next out winner in our Independence, who's about as tough a veteran as you'll get sprinting on the turf here in South Florida. That horse returned to win for $16K. 7th on the afternoon, 5 more to go. Late pick 5 begins with these 3-year-old fillies and a field of 7 on the turf going 5 furlongs. Now, as far as my late pick 5, I went 3 deep in this opening leg and 3 excellent barns in Bill Mott, Jeremiah Engelhardt, and trainer Todd Pletcher on the outside with the 7 Classy Dancer. I did single the 4 Dagny's Warrior. If I was using another, clearly to me at least, Starship Zodiac is the main danger to the 4 Dagny's Warrior, but I like the fact that that horse has got speed and didn't run all that bad in a tougher 12-horse field about 5 months ago beneath the Twin Spires at Churchill Downs. 3 deep for me in race number 9, going 6, 8, and 9, very much in favor of the mid-pack towards outside runners, and I do like the race quite a bit that the number 8 Bakelite is coming out of. 9th race today, or rather the 10th, excuse me, is our co-featured 10th race, and a solid crew of fillies and mares. I'm a fan of Noble Ready and the 2 Lido, even though, to be fair, big pace scratch in that one of the 6 team of teams may really move up the 4 at Conquest Hard Candy, even though she's not one of the main players on paper. And wrapping it up, every bit of the 2, 4, and 5. Were they the same 3 that you used in your Rainbow 6? I can't remember. I know you like...
No, I used 4, 5, and 10.
4, 5, and 10. I threw Iron Johnny, who's the deuce. I included him because of the post and because of the Maker Gaffleone presence there. But I am a fan of a Manhattan Project and the 4 Masquerader as we close down the card down the line in race number 11. So let's begin with this opening leg, and in talking about this 7th race that includes the Todd Pletcher trained near 8-month layoff and first-time tagged Classy Dancer. We've got a status. She comes in a 3-year-old filly by Speightstown off a 237-day layoff, and we pulled it just to show that Todd doesn't do this move all that often. We're talking 6 months or more in the layoff department, returning as a first-time tagged horse. 3 for 9, which is great, but considering we're discussing a barn that probably has compiled over 5,000 starters over the last 5 years in that sample time, just having 9 runners, again, not a move Todd does all that often.
No, it's not. And in general, we've seen Todd do a lot of significant drops in class throughout this meet. And in general, those horses run very well, if not win by a lot. The biggest question with this filly is it's really hard to go off of her first 2 races. Her second career start was in the Brave Raj throughout the summer. It was in stakes competition on the dirt. As a 2-year-old, she debuted on the turf as a 2-year-old here at Gulfstream. I don't think she really faced anything in that debut race. And we know that Todd's horses are just so ready to go at first asking, especially the ones that he does debut here at Gulfstream in the summer. So it's kind of tough to go off of. I don't know the inner workings of why she's dropping off of the layoff. The works are a little bit pedestrian at Palm Beach Downs, but we'll see what we get from her. I just did think there were a couple other horses that were a little bit more interesting, namely the number 3 and the number 2. The 3, Burke's Garden, a recent maiden winner for trainer Bill Mott, comes out of a key race. It was 2 next out winners. She dropped in class there coming in from Keeneland. I think she appreciated the 5/8 distance, and I think she likes the firm turf course.
What a ride she got last time out from Johnny V. Jose Ortiz, another son of Puerto Rico, will take over the controls as he enters today's card with 48 wins, just 7 behind Erad, who had another 4-bagger here yesterday.
And not too bad a day for either of the Ortiz brothers any day of the week, it seems.
Yep. Pretty awesome. As we move on to our final dirt race today, race number 8 on the main, 3-year-old filly Florida-bred maiden special weight runner set to battle. And for me, it boiled down to either the 1 Starship Zodiac, who definitely showed improvement first off the claim with Luch and Anthony Cordarolo, or the less heralded number 4 horse in Dagny's Warrior, who wasn't that big of a price, as crazy as it sounds, going off at 20-1, an AP Warrior firster at Churchill in a 12-horse field in September, and showed speed in a race that's produced a next out winner.
It did. Cosmic Burst, the 2nd place finisher, did come back to win again, and as you said, she was in a big field. She was also drawn to the outside there, debuting at Churchill. The biggest thing with her is that she hasn't run since. She's been working well. Her work 2 back on February 6th, 5 furlongs in a minute and 1. Certainly looking strong for trainer Mike Tomlinson. I just kind of needed to see one off of the bench.
I get it.
So this race is wide open, though. I certainly would not be surprised if she did win. And interesting to see she is a Florida bred, so she does face state bred competition today, which really could be key for her. Now, I don't love that the 1 Starship Zodiac has been exposed for the tag a couple times already, but I thought her race last time out was very strong. I love that Javier Castellano stays aboard, and I think that she's coming in strong off that last race. Yeah,
that last race was a big step in the right direction, and off that, she's the one they've got to beat from the rail in race number 8. All Turf Late Pick 3 begins in the 9th. These are 3-year-old $20,000 maiden claimers, and from the 6 going to the beach, out to the 8 Bakelite, and even the 9 Mr. Mack, who might appreciate the switch to the turf. I think one of those 3 most likely to win this race, and they'll probably be the first 3 betting choices. Now, as far as the 8 Bakelite, let's show you the chart from the finale here on January 12th, a day I know you liked Elk Camp quite a bit, and it's been nice. Of course, I blew the win bet in the exact in this race. I went Rocky Strange over Elk Camp, but just look at how well horses have consistently run out of this race. In fact, with 3 next out winners right there. Boom, there's one with Elk Camp, who came back. Air, and Dreaming of JoJo.
There we go.
Yeah, so that race has just been super live, and Bakelite didn't run all that poorly in the race and is switching to a barn that does not have the kind of numbers the previous operation had. And maybe a horse like this, change of scenery, might do Bakelite some good.
And certainly Christophe Clement is one of the best turf trainers.
Yep.
But I do think that Marcus Vitale has had a very good meet. He had 2 winners just yesterday. This horse is a gelding and gets a drop in class. That really might be the key as well. I did take Going to the Beach. This horse really has to improve off of that last effort, but I like to see Luis Saez getting up again. And New Atlas, another impressive win yesterday.
Yeah, a couple of next out winners exiting that Going to the Beach race. Now, as we move on to race number 10, co-feature on the turf for older fillies and mares, had that important scratch of the 6 team of teams, and that might elevate the 4 Conquest Hard Candy. She's not as good as, say, the 2 Lido, I don't think, or the 3 Noble Ready, but you may want to go back and give her another look. I like the 3 Noble Ready, and I know she's coming out of a tough luck second behind Island Reward.
And we'll show you that race. She does come out of the same race as My Sister Sledge. And looking at that race on January 31st, I actually thought as we go to the break, Noble Ready did end up just getting knocked around at the start. She was the number 5, and if we could just freeze it right there, you can see in the green colors here, basically what happened after she was getting around, Irada Ortiz, who was aboard that day, had to take her back, and we'll let it go from there. Had to take her back, and she was forced to be at the back of the pack pretty much the entire way. And now if we can just freeze again, we're looking at the green colors. There she is right there. My Sister Sledge, a ground saving trip along the rail. Let it roll from there. Basically what happens here is that these 2 end up going widest of all. My Sister Sledge, the widest and closing, but big effort from both of these, where Island Ready did seem to have, Island Reward, excuse me, had a bit of an easier win.
Oh, look at her slipping up inside. It looks like Noble Ready might just win this race for more than a few strides, but Island Reward slipped up the fence. I like Noble Ready returning this afternoon. I respect the 2 Lido, who's one of the youngsters, the 4-year-old filly who would have been 2 coming out of the Tropical Oaks, but again, team of teams did scratch.
Yes, she did, and there is some speed to the outside still left with Follow No One, but really Conquest Hard Candy could get loose on the front end.
As we wrap things up with race number 11, 3 deep for me in the back end of the late pick 5. Every bit of the 2, 4, and 5 with these 3-year-old maiden claimers on the turf going a 2-turn mile. The 4 Masquerader comes out of that same race with El Camp and Bakelite in race number 9, so we might even have to update that chart. And in the case of the 5 Manhattan Project, I respect another second-time starter who I thought got a good ride after just being slow into stride early.
As he did for sure, and I'm with you with Masquerader. Trainer Barkley tagged second-time starters with maiden special on the turf. He's 18% win and a nearly even ROI.
All right, just about out of time as we say goodbye, but fear not, Ron Nicoletti in the mix today. We are fast and firm, and get those pens and pencils up. Pete Aiello standing by with those scratches and changes.